Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. When people look at you as a plumbing company owner, do they wonder if you're even old enough to be a plumber?
That is the bane of my existence, but also the best part, right? Is I work with my younger brother. He's 3 years younger than me, and I know he's going to hate me for saying, but they all think he's my older brother. Yes, people think that I'm in my 30s. I am not. I was born in '82. I've been doing this longer than I think most people think I have been doing it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I look young. It's
it's not a blessing and a curse. It's not a bad problem.
Yeah, blessing and a curse. They think experience comes with age, and you know what I mean. And but it is what it is.
It's a good thing though, because everybody when they're older wants to look younger. Everybody when they're younger wants to look older, and you're like, you know what? I'm older, I look younger. You're living the dream. It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's helped me with connecting with the younger generation and stuff like that. I think if they knew how old I was, they'd probably be like, oh, God.
Yeah, you probably tell them at school you're 25, 30 years old.
I tell them how old. I do tell them how old I am, but I went to a Connect one time, and I said, how old do you think I am here? And they were like, 30, 31, and I was like, all right, cool. And they were, well, how old are you? And I was like, oh, I have to answer that question. Yeah. I was like, that question was for me.
Right. Yeah. And you can't ask me the same question. That's something different. It's not a bad thing, though.
Yeah, no.
How did you get involved in the trades?
So my dad was a plumber. I'm a fourth generation plumber, actually. And so I grew up with a dad that provided us with everything we could possibly want with just being a plumber. I mean, he ran his own company. He worked all the time. I mean, but he made time for us. He made time to do, fun things. I grew up, we called it, what did he say? It was like Bob's breakfast menu. And so he had it on the fridge, and we'd be like, hey, I want an egg sandwich, or I want French toast. And so before he'd go to work, he'd make us that stuff as kids and put it in the oven, cool. Leave it warm. And so, he was always working. He had the best work ethic. And then, he'd take us on jobs. And as a kid, going on jobs was like so exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I just, followed him.
Okay. So fourth generation. And I'm assuming you enjoy plumbing.
Yep.
What if they'd have been electricians or... I know. That's the first one that jumps into my mind. I hate to say it.
I may have followed into that, you know what I mean?
But then again, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. It's like that's not what happened. So, but my grandfather, like my dad's parents, or not both his parents, but his father had passed away when he was 13. So I didn't, even though I'm fourth generation, I didn't have the other generations weren't around when I became a plumber.
Right.
There was no other option. I wanted to work on Wall Street. I wanted to do all sorts of different things. But the world is supply and demand, and it just became apparent that this was the right move. I mean, my parents were, the moment I was done high school, that weekend, they were like, well, tomorrow, Monday, you're going to go work with your dad. You don't have a job, so go. And, they were always good with their work ethic. I grew up in Vermont. I wanted to go snowboarding all the time. They're like, well, get a job on the mountain. You know what I mean? Pay for your pass. Yeah, and that's how it was. And he really, both of them, but he really instilled the value of plumbing into me. And I mean, because he loves it. He loves every bit about it. I mean, he would sit down and just talk about systems or steam systems, boiler systems, and he loves it. And so that he passed that to me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was going to end up loving it the same way.
Well, you're either going to love it or you're really going to hate it, one or the other.
Yep.
And you talk about steam, because steam's not as prevalent down here in the South.
Yep.
But it's a big deal where y'all are at.
Mm-hmm.
And to be a steam fitter, I mean, that's a prideful profession.
Yeah.
What kind of plumbing do you do now?
Now, my brother and we have a company in Virginia, and we do residential service and commercial service. And we're actually building 2 custom homes right now, but we'll do like commercial build outs and things like that. So a little bit of industrial plumbing as well. We did a 5,000 PSI nitrogen line for a robot cold weld system. So, I mean, it's like whatever we can say yes to, we'll do it.
All right. So when you first started plumbing, what was it that you enjoyed about it?
When I first started plumbing, I don't know that I enjoyed as much of it as I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
I liked working with my dad, but I was your typical, 16-year-old, 18-year-old kid working with his dad who, my dad's a super nice guy. So got away with a lot. I mean, take us to lunch every day. So I had it nice with him and didn't, and then I didn't quite understand the value of the work and stuff. He would jump in to take care of things that I couldn't and things. So it's like, I was plumbing with a handicap and I had the best person I could possibly have be there to pick up any slack when I ever had any problems and things. So, it was just going to work, coming home and that was it. And it really took me a little bit, probably the same as most people, right? Like when you hit that mid-20s to realize that you gotta care about it. And I remember one day my dad telling me, he goes, life isn't a game. You only get out what you put in. And that has stuck with me ever since to be like, oh, it's like I have to put effort into this. It's like I don't just get to be. And I've thought about that, most of my life as an adult, that him saying that.
And, there's a lot of people that they approach it all lackadaisical, like, hey, you know what? Great. I got a job here, whatever. And I hate to see that. And I want to get back to that in a second, but tell everybody who you are and what you do.
So my name's Tony Bertolino. I own a plumbing company with my brother, Rob Bertolino, Plumbing and Heating, out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. I also teach our apprenticeship course in the evenings, all 4 years. I have 145 students. And I am part of our PHCC, which is our professional organization for plumbers. I am the Zone 2 director for the national part of the organization, overseeing Maryland, Virginia, and DC, Metro DC, and Delaware. And so I work to advocate for plumbing and do plumbing and residential, commercial, all of that.
It's funny. Out of all the countries and cities I travel around to, never been to Washington, never been to Virginia, none of that. So it's like, okay, this is completely different. But let's go back to you being an apprentice and learning from your dad. And you say you're kind of in a tough spot because dad would jump in and take care of any problem.
Yep.
What are apprentices not learning today that we had to learn back then?
Let's see. I guess thinking about that, one of the things, and this came from one of my current students. Well, he was a student like 5 years ago, young kid. His last name's Moon. I always called him Moon. And he came into class one night and he was filthy. And he does commercial service. I mean, grease traps, all this stuff. So just terrible, gross, bad stuff sometimes. And so he's, just head to toe, looks exhausted, but he's got a smile on his face. And I joke him. I'm like, Moon, why are you always smiling? And, how can you possibly be happy? You ever have a bad day? And he said to me, he goes, it doesn't really matter. Or, actually it was, how did he put it? He goes, I have to do the job whether I like it or not. And if you are frustrated or upset or you don't want to do it, it just makes it that much harder. So I just say, hey, I've got to do it. I'll just like doing it. And it was this mindset that this kid had from day one that I thought, wow, what a great lesson to teach someone to just be like, hey, just try to be happy doing it. Because we all know, I mean, the simplest task when we're upset or frustrated, is the worst thing in the world. So I try to tell the guys, give it 30 minutes. If you're on a roof or trying to run a terrible drain line, 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, stop killing yourself. Take a minute, take a breath, try something else, do something different so that you're not totally upset, totally frustrated, because your job sucks when you're angry.
Oh yeah. And
stuff. So just try to enjoy it, appreciate it, have a good time with it. It doesn't always have to be hard and terrible.
This video is sponsored by High Level. For your 30-day free trial, go to gohighlevel.com/Roger Wakefield. You know, and that's a great way to look at it. I tell people when you come into the office, you know, number one, always do the things that make you money first. You know, get the important stuff out of the way. But one thing I learned a long time ago, and the way it was put to me was so good, is if you come into the office and you got 2 horrible things that you've got to do that day, the mindset was eat the ugly frog first. If you come in and you've got to eat 2 ugly frogs, eat the ugliest one.
Yep.
Because after you finish the ugly one, the next one doesn't look near as bad. And it's like, take care of the stuff you don't want to do. Get it done. And then it makes your whole day better. Because number one, you've done what you didn't want to do.
Yep.
It's done. It's behind you. It's over with. Let's move forward. If you put it off till the end of the day, your mind is thinking about this all freaking day long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's like, okay, I know I've got to do this. I don't want to do this. You know, instead of doing this, I'm going to go pull my teeth out. It's whatever. You'll come up with a million reasons. Then it's like, man, it's really too late to do that. I'll do that tomorrow. And it keeps getting put off and keeps getting put off. But if you come in and knock it out first thing in the morning, eat that ugly frog first, the rest of it doesn't look near as bad.
Nope. You're out. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
How do we teach apprentices that mindset?
That's a hard one. There's a lot of instant gratification and stuff like that. I mean, I just try to be honest with my guys. You know, I talk to them about it. A lot of people are going to want to feel good the moment that they do it. I mean, I always heard that like you should love what you do and do, you know what I mean? And it's like, I had a different, you know, it's like I had a different mindset. Like I'm going to survive, and I was going to do whatever it takes to survive. And that was it. You know, I didn't care what I had to do. You know, I'm going to make sure bills are paid and this stuff is going to happen. And it's like, you can love it. And you're right, doing the hardest part first, that procrastination and that time management. I mean, that's an important skill that these guys need to learn. In Virginia, we created a Future Leaders program, and that is one of the topics that I thought was paramount to a person becoming in a position like you or myself, or, you know, in a leadership position, was time management, you know, same thing, personal finance, that kind of stuff. But you had to be able to look at those things, and like what you're saying about eating the ugly frog first, that's all part of that. You know, you having to understand that it's going to have to get done. What part of the day do you want to do it? Do you want to do the hardest part, the worst part at the end when you're exhausted, or do you want to do it right off the bat? My dad always said you're more productive before lunch than you are after. So you do all the...
With me, that's 100% true.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that. And teaching them that, you get in, you get it done, then look, you got the whole rest of the day ahead of you. And you said that you came in with, I'm going to do whatever it takes to pay my bills. I'm going to do what I have to do. I tell people all the time, I used to have 3 jobs. I was an apprentice during the day. 2 or 3 nights a week, I was a bartender. Friday and Saturday, or Saturday and Sundays, I was out building fences and redwood decks. Anything I could do to make money. I wanted to support my wife, my son, and do the things that we were doing. People get in the trades now and they're like, look, I can't make enough money. Or they're like, look, I can't get in plumbing because I can't make enough money starting out. And I tell them, look, I did it. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Because sometimes that's what you got to do. And a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
They're like, well, you know, I went to work at McDonald's. I'm a manager now. I can't make this kind of money starting out in plumbing. No. But you didn't make that money when you started at McDonald's either. And is that $60,000 a year? How much is it going to be in 4 years or 5 years? Because you can start plumbing now at a much lower rate, but in 5 years, that can be $100,000 a year. It can be $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
What do your apprentices make right now? Where you're at in Virginia? What do they start out at?
Probably, I would say like 18 to 20, something like that.
Yeah, $40,000 a year to start out.
Yep.
36 to 40.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that don't understand, it keeps getting better year after year after year. And I used to tell people that here in Dallas, when I was recruiting people into the union, I think back then it was around $18 an hour. And they're like, well, I can't live on $36,000 a year. It's like, well, could you do it for a year? Because in a year, that's going to be $42,000 a year. And in another year, it's going to be like $46,000 a year. And it goes up that quick. And they're like, well, you can't guarantee that. It's like, yeah, I can. This is a union job. You get 3 raises a year. You get your cost of living raise, and you get the annual raises.
Yeah.
And it blows their mind.
But I think the real problem that people are having an issue with is that money management, that personal finance, right? I mean, we were doing a Davis-Bacon job for a hospital, and I had an apprentice on that job getting paid Davis-Bacon wages because he wasn't in school and everything. First thing he goes out and does is buys a brand new Raptor pickup truck, right? I mean, this
number one, that's a Ford, right?
Yeah.
Why would anybody buy a Ford?
I've got a Ford.
See? This interview's been great. Thank you very much, Tony. Have a great day. Safe travels.
He goes out and gets this thing, and I tried to tell him, I'm not your dad, but these jobs are finite. Like, they end, and you were hired at like an apprentice rate at $18 an hour or whatever it was back then. And so, yeah, the job gets to the point where we don't need the helpers on it. So pull off. And he comes to me, hey, Tony, like I need to get back on a Davis-Bacon job. Well, I don't have, we rotate the guys. They're not, you know what I mean? And he's like, well, I have a $1,400 a month truck payment. I have got to be on a job making this much money. I can't help you. All right, today's my last day. Walks off. And then eventually that truck gets repoed because he couldn't get the, you know what I mean? And it all comes down to not knowing how to balance that stuff out, right? I mean, most of these kids these days, people these days they spend what they make. And so you ask somebody, hey, you invest your time into a trade. I mean, we're promising you're going to get here. We're going to bring you there. They're like, my bills, my credit cards,
not gonna be this week.
I'm maxed out. I literally cannot do it. So I have to keep my McDonald's management position because there is no way that I can leave a job for anything less. I have to make more. And, I was a kid that, I didn't spend any money. So I was like, it's totally free. I could be paid $20 an hour and I can be fine. And that's freeing to know that I am not bound to any of that. I can pick and choose what I want. But as soon as you get stuck to it, you're doing what you have to do to survive, or you're losing it. And I think that's something that kids are not being shown. It's so easy to borrow money and get to where you want to be.
And they're not taught money management. If you borrow money, you better have a payback plan that's going to be consistent and work and whatnot.
Yep, you're 100%.
And my parents knew nothing about money. They didn't make money. They both had jobs. So I didn't learn about money. And I mean, it's like, man, if I made $10 this week, I was trying to figure out how to spend 12. So I'm just the opposite. I knew nothing about it.
Yep.
Then you start making money. It's like, wow, what can I do with this? How can I put it up? How can I save it? What should I buy?
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy because we don't teach kids things like this in school.
No.
We say we teach them checkbooks and how to balance it, but the book, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yep.
A great book. If you make $1, here's how much. 70% should go here, 10% here, 10% here, 10% here. I didn't learn that till I was 50.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, why didn't I learn this when I was a kid? And I've given that book to each of my granddaughters. I think I told each one of them, if you read it, I'll give you $100. And neither one of them came back and said, hey, where's my $100? It's kids these days. They either don't want to learn, they don't understand how important it is.
Yeah. Well, we live in a society with, our computers are on our, phones. You can ask any question. So, it's almost why retain the knowledge. You can just ask, but then you're on the back foot the whole time. You're like, oh, I should have done that. And, it's too late now, but I'll ask, what do I do if I've done that? Here's a path forward. And you're right. One of the things about money that was, when I thought about it, influenced the way that I live is that every dollar in your pocket is somebody else's debt. It's an IOU. It's just one that the government recognizes. And so I was like, oh, it's like you're collecting other people's debt, other people's IOUs, and you're using those IOUs to pay for a good or a service. You're like, hey, you know, this person wrote an IOU, here it is. Yep. And it's like, I'd rather be the one with everybody's IOUs. You know, I don't.
It works a lot better that way.
I don't want to have a whole lot of IOUs out there and stuff. So, you know, it was just a simple, silly thing that in my mind, you know, changed the way that I looked at money. You
worked with your dad. Did your brother work with your dad too?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay, so y'all both worked for the same company forever, pretty much.
Yep. So Rob and I actually went to the apprenticeship school together and stuff. My brother, he was our top student, graduated as the top student and stuff like that. Rob got his journeyman's, and then he decided, because we were in Vermont, I grew up in Vermont, and he decided, you know what, he wanted to move to Virginia. He wanted to start his own company. And I think he was young. He was like 23, 24 years old, and just decided he's doing it. And so he did. He moved down to Virginia. He got his master's license, and he started a company. He had a truck. He built it up, and he did that entire thing till 2014. In 2014 is when I joined with him, and we decided to work together. I left Vermont in 2011, and I worked as a commercial foreman, superintendent, and did big scale projects because I had never done that.
Now, is this union or is this open shop?
No, it's not open shop.
So PHCC training center, apprentice training program, something like that?
No, so actually Vermont didn't have a PHCC. Okay. So this was it was through our VOTEC college. It was VTC and stuff. So I went to VTC, graduated, and actually upon graduation, I asked, how do you become a teacher? And well, if you got a master's license, we'll hire you. And I said, okay, I'll get my master's license and I'll teach. And the day after I got my master's license, I applied and they hired me. And I became at the time the youngest trade instructor in the state of Vermont. And that was my moving right into teaching. 'Cause the only job I've ever had other than plumbing was I was an assistant teacher at a Montessori school for 3.5 to 5-year-olds. And if you ask my mom, she'll tell you that I should have been a teacher and stuff. But plumbing has given me the opportunity to do absolutely everything and also make money. Whereas teaching, my boss told me, go back to plumbing. I mean, you can't support a family on this.
Teaching.
Yeah, can't do it. And so I became an instructor then, and Rob came down here. And then I moved down here to learn another set of skills because I figured if I'm teaching people how to be plumbers, I can't just have residential boiler steam and the little bit of commercial that we did with my dad in Vermont. I need to know what it's like to work in a hospital. I need to know what it's like doing a high rise and doing these kinds of things. So I jumped right into commercial to learn that.
You know, and I'm lucky because I tell people I've done residential, I've done commercial, I've done industrial, I've done service and new construction in every one of those. I've been non-union, union, and non-union again. So when I talk plumbing, it's like, look, chances are I've done it. I've been in it. I've been around it. I'm very familiar with it. But I think that that's part of what made me good because I understood all aspects of it. Working with your dad, what, you know, you said you're in a rough spot because he would jump in and do things. But eventually he didn't. You had to learn, look, I got to do this. I got to man up. What made you want to become a really good plumber?
You know, really my parents, I kind of did it in one day I thought, you know, he loves this industry. Mm-hmm. And now I'm teaching plumbing. I'm teaching some guys and stuff like that. And I'm doing the work. And I thought to myself, the way I assumed, I don't have kids, I didn't have kids. You know, I was like, I assumed that your parents find success in their children being successful. And so I was like, I will, because of him, you know, he's cared about this. I see a lot of these plumbers that they're just here doing a job. You know, they don't really know why you're doing it. I mean, the whole country really looks at it like, oh, you want a bidet on your toilet or a nice new shower? And they're like, backflow is the important part, you know, right. Safety of potable water. And so I was like, I'm going to do this because not because I want him to be proud of me, but just because I want to show him that his kid and everything that he did in training me and same with my mom made me who I am today, and I'm making a difference. And, you know, he had told us, he's like, your last name is what you got. You know, it's like, this is who you are, as long as you're good with, you know what I mean? And people are going to know who you are based on that. And as long as you've been an honest, good person, they're going to know that about you. And so I started to work to be the best I could at advocating for plumbing. And, you know, I'm a good plumber. My brother is an exceptional, he looks at problems and he can just resolve them in his head in a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say he's better than me, but his innovation on stuff is incredible. I've always thought that about him. Speaking wise and the love and passion of the trade, that was where I got it. And so I took great lengths to do it. I started reading, you know, as often as I could, not because I liked reading, but because I wanted my vocabulary to be different.
Right.
When I was 22, or I think it was 22, 21, I was working under a guy's sink, and he brought out his ODU diploma. And he said, you know, had you gone to college, you wouldn't be working under my sink. And I've always been a really nice, well-mannered kid. I didn't jump down his throat. I just said, you know, okay. And I drive home, and, you know, I'm like, what a crappy thing to say to somebody like I was working. And it reminded me of a time in high school when my dad asked me, he goes, do you ever get made fun of for me being a plumber? And I was like, no, nobody had ever treated me any way whatsoever based on your profession. And I never understood why he asked that until the day that guy said that to me. And I was like, from this day forward, from, you know, when it clicked, when I had to do it, I was like, I will never be considered less than anybody else, because I'm not. And I'll make sure that when I talk about it, I'll talk about this trade with such passion that no one can think that I'm less than anybody else because I didn't go to college or because I didn't do, you know, something that they expected you to do. And I tell my students now, intelligence is problem solving. Point blank, that's it. It doesn't matter how many languages you speak.
Right. Solve
Solve a problem, whatever its complexity is and how fast, that is the metric you use, and that defines our intelligence, because we can sit here and say your dog is intelligent. You can't say anything in English, but we can tell how intelligent they are compared to other things, and that's what it is. And plumbers and HVAC guys, what all of us, we solve problems every day.
And we do, and I love that, and I love the mindset and the way you look at it. A great way I heard it put, where it made so much sense to me, is we're paid in exact proportion as to the size of problems that we solve.
I love that.
And it is intelligence. And, you know, when I get on stages, and I'm on stages across the country, and I always get on stage and say, look, I'm Roger Wakefield. I'm just a plumber. And people start laughing. And a lot of people I know, whenever we're at the speaker's event, dinner, or, you know, networking bar, whatever, they're like, Roger, you're so much more than a plumber. It's like, yeah, but I need people to understand that's really what I am. I'm a master plumber. I've got my license in my pocket. But look where I'm at today. Look what I've done with it. You talk about the passion. I love plumbing. And it's so funny because you were talking last night about a student that wouldn't come talk to me.
Yes.
Okay. There was one like that at Skills USA, and one of the judges finally came out and says, Roger, look, man, this kid over here, you're the reason he got into plumbing. So will you come over and say hi? So I walk over there, and I guess his dad is like, hey, here comes Roger. And this kid looks over, and this kid just starts shaking. And I walk up and I introduce myself, and I'm one of those most approachable people in the world. I will talk to everybody. And I walk up, and this kid's listening, and I'm looking at him. He's like, oh my God, you're Roger Wakefield. I'm like, no, I'm just a plumber. Okay, you know that, right? What you're trying to grow up and be, that's what I grew up to be. And that's what I am. And this kid finally calmed down, and we had a conversation. Me, man, I just handled the whole diploma thing probably a little bit different. but it'd have been funny because I would ask him, so what do you do? And me, one of the most important things that I think is amazing about the trades is the pride that most people have in the trades.
Yeah.
And I tell it, I can be driving down the road, and I'll point at a building and say, hey, I built that building right there. And she'll be like, yeah, I know. It's like, really? How do you know? She's like, well, every time we drive down here, you tell me this. And it's like, yeah, but I love that fact. And it's funny because it doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter who we're with. It's always, I built that. I built that. I built that. I helped build that. I worked on that. And I don't know of any other job that people have where they're that prideful about what they do every day. And it's hard for me to imagine me doing anything else.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love what I do. I'm an advocate for it. I tell people about it. I'm on social media every day. Look, get into the trades. It's a great opportunity. But one of the biggest problems that we've got is parents, counselors, principals, teachers, aunts and uncles. Your dad was a plumber, so you probably never heard this, but I was always told, look, if you don't go to college, you're never going to amount to anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Yeah.
And then when you don't, and I think that's a lot of problem that a lot of skilled tradespeople have, they've got that mindset of, I didn't go to college. I'm nothing. And it's like, look at the world around you. Who do you think built that? Blue collar workers.
Yep.
Who builds it? Who repairs it every single day? It's us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm trying to get across to the people that are an almost antagonist. This is who we're fighting against. The people they trust the most, their parents, their aunts, their uncles, their counselors, their teachers, their principals, people that they love. And you got to tell them, look, guys, they're not right.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to do.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
I used to, well, not used to, but I try to incorporate, when I talk about plumbing to people, I look at my audience and I wanted to make sure that I tried to pick every person out of it, right? So it's easy to talk to plumbers about plumbing, right? Everything I have to say, they're like, yeah, right on, brother. Bet. Like, you're good. But it's the people that, know very little about it that I was like, hey, like, we're also part of your life. We're an industry that matters, right? I mean,
we touch your life every day, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, exactly, right? Your surgeon's got to wash his hands, and it's like, but it's easy to say that, and I think it comes down to, like you were saying, that the how proud we are to do the work we've done. Plumbers and tradespeople have worked so hard to make life easier for the people that they serve, that then they don't see us on a regular basis. Right. I often use the analogy that was with the butcher, right? Back in the day, a butcher was your daughter was going to marry the local butcher. That was okay.
Always going to be meat on the table.
Yeah, we were doing good. But industry kind of ruined that profession with the assembly line. And they're like, hey, you know what? We realize we can pay Roger $1 if he just does this movement every day. Mm-hmm. And then we'll pay Tony $1. He can do this one. And we parted it out. We can triple, quadruple the efficiency of one butcher and pay less. And so that's not happening with us. But what we did is we install systems. I mean, how many other industries want to do a 50-year warranty on something? Yep. You know what I mean? Like, I've know builders that are like lifetime warranty, and it's like, this is, your truck will not last that long. Exactly. If your truck goes 50 years, you're doing something right, or you're not driving it. Mm-hmm. And, but we've made ourselves kind of invisible. And now you look at plumbing in this area or in the United States, and it's like this convenience, and it's like, it's not. It was never a convenience here. This was a necessity. It's the second oldest trade in existence. I mean, we're talking about ancient China developing this because they had to figure out how to not get sick and die. And so when I talk to people, I bring it up. It's like, the economic success of the United States can be linked to our plumbing. I mean, there's data that shows that when you have potable water and sanitary water systems, people are able to go to school. There are less sick days. They're able to attend and learn more. Women are particularly affected in third world countries, as it is a gender-based job to go get water from some sort of clean source to take care of your family. I read a statistic one time that it was like women labor hours to find clean water for their families in third world countries accounts for building the Empire State Building 27 times a day. You know how long it took to build it? A year and a month.
Wow.
Every day. And it's like that just, if you provide potable water, all of that labor hour gets devoted to something else in society that needs. So every aspect of what we do is increasing our ability to do other great things as people, because it's one less thing we have to worry about by making sure that every time you pick up a glass of water and you drink it, you're not going to get sick.
Yeah.
You can live longer and stuff. And I mean, that is essential. We all learned that water was essential to life, that we're made up of most of it. And that's what we work with.
And, I like the fact we make sure the doctor's hands are clean.
Yeah.
We do. If you've been in the hospital, we do the med gas, we do the fire protection systems. We do a whole lot of the stuff.
All of it.
So owning a company, working with your brother, family company, what made him want to do that? And then what made you want to go to work there?
So my brother has always been a go-getter. I mean, he started out, I think that when he was, it was from the moment before he was legally allowed to drive, he would take my parents' vehicle and back it up and do turns in the driveway, practicing how to drive. And that went to work. I mean, the moment he was legally allowed to have a job, he just went and got a job. He went and worked on vehicles. He actually, he went to school to be an auto mechanic. He loves vehicles. He built his own vehicle from the ground up. And in that schooling, I think he came in second in some Ford Motor Challenge thing for the state, only because they accidentally blew a fuse, and that was like the points against them and stuff like that for whatever they had to do. So he loved working, but he decided there was a ceiling on being an auto mechanic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, here's how much you can make, and unless you buy a building or do something, and you know what I mean, that's where you're at.
Well, there's a ceiling on plumbing too, unless you get a building or start your own business. So there he is.
But there was just so much more room, I think, to grow. So he was like, you know what, and he just jumped in with both feet. And he went considerably more than me in trying to do the business side of everything, whereas I was comfortable just being the plumber. He was like, I'm gonna run and do this and rock and roll. And then it just got to this point where he decided that warmer weather in Virginia was the thing. And so
how much warmer is it really? How cold does it get in Virginia?
Right. We've had it pretty cold, and it's been like 27 at the coldest, maybe 25. It's not that bad, but Vermont, that 75 year anniversary rigid wrench that I had. Yeah. I mean, I'd go sometimes and it would get wet and ice would be on it. You're talking -5, 10, 20 degrees with wind, and your truck was, your tools are sitting in the back of it gathering frost. It's tough. That was hard working under stuff. It was hard working there.
Now, I was in the Dominican Republic 2 weeks ago, and it was 20 degrees here in Dallas. Yeah. It gets cold everywhere.
Yeah.
But we also get to 110, in the summertime.
I'm cold weather built.
Not me.
Yeah, my brother's like you.
I'll take the warmth any day of the week. Yeah. How hard is it to grow a business and build a good culture where you've got good people there that want to be there and want to do the right thing every day?
I say it's not hard, but that's not really true. My brother and I, we're kind of like oil and water, right? Where we both have strengths in the area where the other one doesn't. And, I'm the teacher, and he's the, he comes up with ideas, and I'm good at implementing them. So we had this unique structure of how we worked together when we started. And, to my brother's credit, if I come up with a zany idea, or I'm like, hey, we should just hire this person, he's like, oh, okay. And he would just be like, let's do it. He always had this idea that it was like, whatever the best idea was, we would go with it. We just thought that treating our guys like human beings and being considerate of, that, like, your job is not your most important thing, right? Your family is clearly the most important thing. The job comes second. So Rob was like, well, how do we make them happy, right? So he walks in to get insurance, and he just asks the guy, what is the best insurance I can possibly get so that my guys will never go anywhere else for health insurance? That was it. You know what I mean? He was like,
great way to look.
Yeah, we're just, hey, we're going to take care of this for you. We're going to make sure. And so, I mean, just recently, one of our guys, Dan, he's out there. Rob's showing him how he builds his pouch and stuff like that, and doing stuff with him and making sure, because our guys are great. They want to learn. And Rob's like, I'm going to take the time to come out here and hang out and do this with you. And we just have this, we just, I don't know, kind of fell into being considerate of their home lives, being considerate of who they are and what they care about, and asking questions. Like, what do you care about? Our lead guy, Brian, I mean, he's the greatest. He cares about hunting. He's got, a fridge full of meat, venison. So, for hunting is his favorite thing in the whole world. So when hunting season, he's got start hunting day off. He's got every Wednesday after until hunting season's over off. We make sure to take care of what he cares about, because while money is really very important, there are some things that you may care about that aren't, you know what I mean? That it's like, maybe you wouldn't spend it on yourself even if you had the money. And, so we just fell into this culture, and all the guys are really good with each other. I mean, if one of them finishes early, they call the other ones and say, hey, do you need a hand? I'll come give you help. I'll do this. And so it's like this team of people that are really happy and proud to be there. And, we just keep it going like that.
That's such a neat way to do it. And company culture is the biggest thing I think any company can focus on and work on to grow.
Yeah.
Because like your brother said, I want insurance so good they're never going to leave, because we've got the best insurance they've ever had. And I think things like that are phenomenal. How do you train your people? Will you hire green apprentices and put them in a truck and help them grow? Or do you like just hiring plumbers that have already been trained or already have a license?
So Brian was a plumber that had already been trained. But I taught him in school, since I talked to all of them, and he decided that he was going to start his own thing. And then he was looking for doing some work on the side to be able to, manage things as he was going. And so he came, he knew who I was, and he was like, all right. And he helped us out. Then he just decided that he kind of liked that better. And so he just stayed. And so we hired him and took him. But we use our guys. We ask them, like, do you know somebody? So we've got Gavin, and he's our apprentice. He's in the apprenticeship. You got to go to the apprenticeship if you're with us, because it's tough for me to teach it and not send you. Mm-hmm. So you got to go to it. And, he works with Brian, and Brian is sometimes a real tough guy to work for, but they've known each other for a long time. Dan and Josh, I've taught both of them. I taught them for 4 years and stuff. And they're here. They're both of them are journeyman plumbers and stuff. Our office manager, Taya, Josh was one of his fiance's friends who was like, hey, like, she really wants to be involved and stuff like that. She's a wonderful person. She's actually going to become a nurse and stuff. So we use them in every aspect. Rob, and I really have never been the overseers and, the telling everybody, well, this is what's going to happen. And We'll just pick, we involve them in decisions and how we're doing things. And I think that giving a voice really, really helps. But yeah, we like taking brand new apprentices, and I want to train them up. I want them to be confident. I want them to feel good, and I want them to be in that truck doing stuff, and having a better life because they're a plumber.
This video is sponsored by High Level. We've partnered up with High Level because we believe this is the best all-in-one sales and marketing platform to help you grow your business. For your 30-day free trial, go to gohighlevel.com/Roger Wakefield.
Do the apprentices you bring in and train, do they normally stay with you, or do they normally eventually look around and they're like, hey, the grass is always greener? They find out it's normally not, but
We've had with our employees, we haven't really had any leave. We've had one or two leave. Some of them they were apprentices. They jumped into doing plumbing, and it wasn't going to work. Like they learned that this is not the right field to be in. So it's no hard feelings from us. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, we sit down and they're like, this isn't going to be the thing I can do. And so you have that where that, it's hard work, right? I mean, you're jackhammering and doing all that stuff, the labor part, it's tough.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, you're going to bed and knowing what you did today.
Yes.
And stuff. So sometimes there's a person that doesn't have the right fit and things, but we do try them out. But the ones that have gone through, they're still with us.
I used to love going to bed after being on a jackhammer, something like that. Because you laid down, and it was always number one. It felt so good to lay down. And then there's that big smile, like, you know what? I did something today. And my first job was as a laborer, or my first construction job. And to get in there every day and work, and then, you drive up to the job, and the next day there's another floor. 2 weeks later, there's another floor. 2 weeks later, there's another floor. And it's like, man, I'm the one helping make these floors go up.
Yeah.
What we do, just getting our hands on and building stuff. A lot of professions don't have that, the satisfaction, the progress. If you're a data analyst, you know what? You can be looking at data next month. You'll be looking at data next month. There's not, to me, the way I see it, the progression that a tradesman get from either building a building, working on a building. I used to love being a residential service plumber. I solve people's problems. And you can come in, you can listen to the plumbing, you can listen to the water lines, you run sewer cameras, you do whatever, but we resolve problems. I don't think there's a greater feeling from any job that I've ever done. As a bartender, great, you give people a buzz. As a security guy, great, you walk through a concert and make sure nobody gets hurt. But there's just something about the trades that it's like, man, this is the greatest feeling every day, walking home realizing, look, I make the world a better place every day. Do people getting into the apprentice training program or coming to work for you, the young ones, the green ones, do they come in with that attitude of, look, I want to do something amazing? Or do they even understand that in the beginning?
Some of them have done enough research where they're like, they get what this is, that they have that. And, in, like you said, in service, one of my favorite things was interacting with customers. I mean, I like talking with people and stuff. And so you get to talk to them. I mean, maybe they're having a bad day, but you can talk about all sorts of things. And so, they learn pretty quick. So like a lot of the apprentices I have, the year ones, that is some of the most rewarding stuff for them, is that at the end of the job, it's the thank you. You know what I mean? Like, you saved Thanksgiving, or like, we didn't know what we were going to do and stuff. And it's those personal interactions where, even though they work for, who knows what company it is, that person is looking at them and thanking them for their efforts. It's not, just whatever, like you're saying, data analysis or something, like you're just picking up a product and you're buying it. It's like, you, the individual, whether you work for whoever, you provided this service, you took care of them, you listened to them, and you solved what was going on, and they are thankful to you. So it's like, you don't get that everywhere else. I mean,
you don't get it hardly any place.
Yeah, right. You're a manager at McDonald's, and they're not coming to you and say, hey, you know what? That burger was, thank you, Roger.
Yep.
Thank you.
Best daggum burger ever.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But you truly did take care of what they needed, and they'll remember that. And I mean, it's like, we have, Josh, our guy Josh, I'd like to set up an appointment with Josh. We want Josh. We love Josh and stuff, and they want him and stuff. Dan has the same thing. We've never had Dan. Dan has this unique way. He walks into somebody's house and he looks around and he goes, oh, I see you have, this right here, that, oh, you like flying? and he recognizes different things. He's just learned so
How
much
can you
about,
connect with people?
yeah. And he just connects with them, and they love him because he sits there and he listens, talks about anything with you and stuff. And Rob had always had that as a rule. He was like, I know the job is the job, but the customer service is the most important part. And if your customer, if they're pulling groceries in, help them pull some groceries in. If you know what I mean, like talk to them, hang out with them, you know what I mean? Get to know them and then also do the job. But like, don't just shoo them away and be like, I'm working, you know what I mean? Don't look over my shoulder or whatever. Like just be a part of it, explain and things. And that's where you build trust.
How big are politics involved in the trades?
They're huge.
You know, I didn't even realize that until the state of Texas, a freaking politician, decided we don't need a plumbing license anymore. And they were trying to move all our licenses over under a Walmart of licenses. You know, we oversee 50 different licenses. Well, in Texas, the Texas State Board is a standalone agency. So we fought it and we ended up winning. The governor stepped in and said, look, I'm declaring an executive order. There is no plumbing without a license. But it took a lot of us plumbers to go down. I spoke at the Capitol. I spoke in front of committees and subcommittees and all these different groups. But it never crossed my mind before then that the trades are a political entity and you've got to have advocates for it. You've got to have people go down and stand up and fight and do things like that.
Yeah.
Now, you're involved with PHCC. You got a bunch of pins and your patch on and all that. What does PHCC do for the trades?
So what you were talking about, that advocacy, that is, I mean, arguably the most important part of what we do, because our license is just that. It's a license to do work given to us by whatever regulatory committee has decided in that state that will allow you to do work in that state. So it doesn't matter how much schooling or how much time on the job you've had, that piece of paper, that license is the representation of your skill level. And because it's a state issued license, it can be taken away. It is not a diploma. It is not a degree. So it can be taken. And like you were saying about Texas, I mean, in one move, you know, are you the same as every other plumber out there? No. But now license-wise, you are. Everyone, whether you just started today or whether you've been doing it for 40 years. And that, you know what I mean? And that's important, especially with the scope of what we do. Mm-hmm. And so the PHCC, you know, advocates for that. I mean, we advocate for apprenticeship. We think that you should have to go to school. You should be a registered apprentice, go to school and learn what this trade is, because it is not as simple. It's not just putting in fun things to make your house look nicer.
It's just water.
Yeah.
Can't even shock anybody. It's not like electricity that could hurt somebody. It's just water.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's more dangerous than all the electricity out there. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable. Property damage is through the roof because of it and stuff, more so than fire. And so we fight for that. I mean, we fight for things that are on our consumer side, right? I mean, here recently, the country has been going through the removal of natural gas and electrification. And while the organization is not against electrification, the reality is that natural gas per BTU is cheaper to heat a house than electric. It just is. I mean, it's hard to argue that point. Texas had those power outages or had that stuff that happened with that cold, and people got astronomical power bills. Bet you the people that on natural gas with that heat, they probably didn't. It probably remained static.
Yeah, mine it didn't bother me.
Yeah, the same. Electricity, it's great. Nothing wrong with it. But the reality is that natural gas heats a lot of people's homes. It gives us a lot of hot water. I mean, these are really valuable things that we have to have. You know, maybe if you're in my state, you can get away with not having heat for all that long, you know what I mean, before you're totally worried that it's going to freeze you out.
I'm in Texas. You would think that we could go longer. And it's like, when there ain't no heat, it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yep.
We're not built for cold. Just being honest.
Yeah. Or for us, it's the generators, right? We want gas operated generators. I live in a hurricane spot. You know, I did a job for a guy that put in a gas generator solely because his wife was on dialysis and he didn't want that dialysis machine to shut off. I mean, that's a life or death thing.
You bet.
If that power goes out, her dialysis machine's going to stay lit and stay going and stuff like that. And it's a very hard concept to be like, well, let's get rid of it.
What's your biggest brand of generators?
Generac, I think, is what we see the most.
I'm wanting to do a deal with Generac because of the big freeze we had. I think every plumbing company, every house should be like, hey, do you have a backup power just in case?
Yeah. I mean, it's important. You know, I'm on well, so it's like, you know, if I didn't have a generator, I lose water. I lose access to water. And it's like, how long do you go before that becomes a serious problem? And it's like, again, everybody just thinks this stuff is, you know, is just a big commodity that exists and it'll be there forever. And it's not. So on the advocacy side, we fight that. I mean, they were doing a big fight with that in New York over it. I mean, New York was banning natural gas left and right, and California and Virginia, we were trying to get fuel gas choice. We believe it's a consumer's right to be allowed to choose how they heat their hot water or their house. I mean, you're allowed to choose. You want natural gas, you want electricity, you know, and we think that's right. Will plumbers and HVAC guys be out there making money off of electrification? Yeah, absolutely. Every gas water heater, rip them out and put electric water heaters in. It's not going to affect me on that, but it is going to affect my customers.
Oh, in a big way.
Yeah. There's going to be customers that won't have hot water for an indeterminate amount of time while they figure out how to get the money together to run a new 220 line to a location where a gas water heater that didn't require power was, and then to patch the hole in their roof, and then to install a new electric water heater. There's going to be some financial hurt there, and there's nothing they can do about it. And so the organization steps in and says, hey, look, you know, this is something we care about. This is what our customers care about. This is what plumbers and HVAC members and technicians and business owners care about. And this is something that is not as simple as just flipping a switch and the country's electric. You know,
oh no, it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there talking with you. Let's head in the right direction. But let's not do this hastily and at the detriment to the people of the country. And that's really very important. So yes, advocacy is the foundation, one of the foundations of the PHCC and everything that we do, because if we don't do something, it can be legislated away with a pen. And then you and I are, you know, we were just plumbers.
Right. Well, and the efficiency ratings have just changed. So there's a lot of big changes going on. And it's neat to see that PHCC's in there involved in that, things like that. I think it's phenomenal because most plumbers, electricians, and HVAC techs, I really don't think that they realize how political their license really is and what all's behind it. PHCC has a big education program too, and I know that they're working on growing it, growing membership, doing a lot of different things. You're involved with the education end of it. How does a controlled education compared to open shop? I've seen it because I became an instructor in the union. So I was like, wow, I didn't even know all this was out here. In your area, what are plumbers taught that maybe open shop plumbers and people like that aren't really taught?
So we have at the school that I teach at, there is the union side apprenticeship, and then I teach the open shop. Like I teach the apprenticeship course that's required. So the difference is, right, is you don't have to go to school. In Virginia, up until recently, I think it was that if you have 10 years experience, you can sit for the master's. So you don't have to have any education whatsoever. But I mean, our test is on code. It's on those requirements and things. So it's unless you are out there doing that yourself and figuring out
every day, you're reading the code book.
Yeah. That's going to be troublesome to pass that to get your license.
You say that, but I mean, I got my master's. I didn't go to school for it. They've got a master prep course, which is okay. Here's what's going to be on the test, and I don't mean just like here's the question, here's the answer, but here's what all it's about. But students or plumbers in Texas, if you don't go through a DOL training program, after 4 years, you can take the test. So literally 4 years as an apprentice, then you get your journeyman, then 4 more years you can set for your master's.
Gotcha.
If you go through the DOL training program, you only have to go 1 more year to set for your master. but still there's not a lot of formal education behind it except the education you had going to school.
Yeah.
But in the union, I enjoyed the fact that they taught you the science, the theory, everything behind it to help make you better. And I taught everything from advanced blueprint readings and drawing to green plumbing and just some neat stuff. So, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love that PHCC also has like their QSC.
Yep.
It's a best practice group. And I didn't even know best practice groups were around until after I had my company. I started struggling. And somebody reached out and said, have you thought about joining one of these groups? It's like, what are these groups? Never even heard of them. But then again, I hadn't heard a lot about PHCC.
Yeah.
What's the biggest benefit for a contractor to be part of PHCC?
The biggest benefit for them is to be around like-minded individuals and have the option to get assistance or mentorship whenever you need it. I mean, it's hard to explain to a brand new person who's never heard of the organization the benefits of the organization, because you can't just look it up and be like, here's a tangible thing that I have.
Here's a list of things we can do for you.
Yeah.
If you don't even know what all those things mean, it really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, joining it was the camaraderie of the group of people in Virginia. I mean, they immediately took me in. Hey, here, what do you got going on? What are you doing here? And stuff like that. And showed me things that I could do or ways and perspectives to look at to help my company and help my brother and I do better. And we did. We really found that helped us and stuff. And I'm thankful to have that with them. And it's, I'm sure you've been to plenty of conferences and things like that around places where people are there to learn or think the same thing. And it's like a lot of problems that we have in plumbing is that when you're done being an apprentice, you're done learning. And it's like you become a business owner and you know what? You're good at plumbing.
Yeah.
And again, you learned how to balance a checkbook in high school. So you're done learning. You don't need to worry about it anymore. And the reality is you are never done learning. You're never done any of that. And this organization gives you the opportunity to continue on that path, to find opportunities to learn more about the industry that you are in and how to run a business or how to do something better or where it's going to be in the future, right? I mean, you got to future-proof yourself. We all talk
we
about...
all need to.
Yeah, we make the joke that AI can't touch us because it can't do the work. However, I took my phone and in the middle of class and I put ChatGPT on its voice and I said, hey, look, I've got a stopped up toilet. What do I do? And it ran me through the full diagnostics of what I would have asked a customer, to the point of where it was like, you have a branch line that's a problem on the second floor bathroom. It's not affecting the downstairs. If you feel confident, you can rent a snake, pull the toilet. I can give you information about how to do that, and you can clear this. If not, you can call a plumber. And I was like, diagnostics is one of the hardest things for us to have to learn. And it is, I mean...
It can do it for us.
Yeah, that is one of the things that you carry and I carry that is my own independent skill set that I'm like, hey, I know how to diagnose a bunch of things. That's what makes me valuable. Well, ChatGPT is learning from all of us now on that diagnostics and pull it up in a heartbeat.
Unfortunately, there's people like me on YouTube teaching it how to do it.
Yeah,
but giving it video and talking to it.
The reality is that's not the end of the world. I used to think that showing somebody how to do it was a problem.
Right.
But then I realized that
most people don't want to do it.
They don't want
to know what you're doing.
They don't want to try to do it.
Yeah.
And it is reasonable to explain this is what's going on. I mean, I say it all the time to our customers when I'm out there talking to them. I'm like, my job is, I've just met you. I want you to trust me, and I'm going to reasonably explain beyond a reasonable doubt what is going on with your system based on facts so that you know that I'm not just selling you a used car.
Love that.
And that's important.
Take a second and tell everybody again who you are and what you do.
Tony Bertolino with Rob Bertolino Plumbing and Heating. I own a plumbing company in Virginia with my brother. I am in the PHCC as zone director. I teach our apprenticeship course through Norfolk Technical in the Hampton Roads area. I have 145 students. I'm also running for national PHCC vice president for 2025.
The day you graduated high school, you said the next Monday you walked out and you headed to work with your dad.
Yep.
Pretend your dad's not there. He's already gone to work. And little Anthony comes walking out the door and you're standing there today to talk to him, what advice would you give him?
I would tell myself to watch my dad significantly more close and to recognize the sacrifice and the skill set that he had before I realized what he was doing and how important it was what he was doing. And that way, and I would just simply say, if you do this, you will be miles ahead of the game than where you will be if you don't.
Pretty good stuff.
Yep.
Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you.